Good day, dear students. Today we are continuing the poem of the Capybara River, and I hope you still remember what we have been going through, and you have seen the first draft of the landscape of the Capybara River, and so you know how it is being compared to a dog, and it is that imagery that is prevalent from the very beginning till almost the end. So let's see what he has to say about the river. The landscape of the Capybara River. The river never opens up to fish, to the shimmer, to the knifely unrest existing in fish. It never opens up in fish. It opens up in flowers, poor and black, like black men and women. It opens up into a flora, as squalid and beggarly as the blacks who must beg. It opens up in hard-leafed mangroves, kinky as a black man's hair. Smooth like the belly of a pregnant dog, the river swells without ever bursting. The river's childbirth is like a dog's, fluid and invertebrate. So here you find that it is about the river that the poet is still speaking, and the river was like a dog without feathers, and it knew rose nothing of the blue rain, of the rose colored fondant. All these we have seen, and it knew crabs of mud, rust and silt, that also we have seen, and it never opens up to fish, and also the shimmering of the fish. It is this that the river that the poet speaks of. So the poet Cabral speaks of the river, and he creates man images like the feverish women living in oysters, and he also tells us that the river never glimmers with fish swimming and creating shimmers. There is a knifely thrust inside the fish. Knifely thrust means there is that eagerness, that daring in the fish that makes it shimmer, that makes it energetic. But here the water is not free flowing. It is so slimy that the fish finds it difficult to have its movements, and so it is not possible to see the fish in it, because usually only that kind of fish which lives in slimy muddy area or the river bank will be there. The usual type of shimmery fish you will not find there. All these other types of fish will be almost dark in color, slimy in color, and they will be deep inside the mud. That kind of fish will be there, but this particular type of fish you will not, this usual type of fish with that silver flash and moving deftly in water, that type of fish you will not be able to find in water, because the water is so slimy, and the knifely thrust or the knifely attitude of the fish, the knife, he says speaks of the knife, the knifely unrest existing in fish is not making the fish come up to the front and shimmer like anything, because there is a daring, because when it comes to the top in shimmers, there is always the fisherman waiting for it to come up and may catch the fish, but very deftly the fish comes out of that. So that knifely thrust is lacking in the fish. That deftness, that agility of the fish is lacking in these fish of this river, and there is a reason, because it is slimy. The description of the river is not over yet, and he says that the river opens up in flowers. It flowers. The river opens up in flowers is in a said in a dramatical manner, as if the river is a plant which sprouts flowers. Of course, the result of so much of living of a plant finally results in flowers. So the river also had been living up, and now it is flowering. But what are the flowers of the river? They are the black people living on the banks of the river. And these black people, the black men and women, they are the flora or the flowers, the result of this kind of river, the slimy river. It now consists of these dirty and beggarly people who are so poor that they have to beg. And he uses the terms beggarly and beg to indicate the poverty of these people. So he is affirming the condition, and he is making sure that the readers get the condition of these people, that they beg and they are beggarly. And these two words, beg and beggarly, indicate their condition, because if there is any option they would have worked hard on the land, but the land is not fertile now as it once had been, but now it is just slime and dirt and so contaminated, and because of that contamination the river banks are not fertile. Once upon a time, the river banks were the cradle of prosperity and civilization. You must have learned it in your history lessons and geography lessons, how the river valleys were fertile places. Especially, you have learned about the Nile Valley civilization, and the river Nile floods once in a while, and this is considered to be a time to rejoice, because the floods bring in a lot of fertility to the banks of the river, and the people wait for that, and they knew that even if it floods and if there is no corn or nothing, no agriculture at that time, the next year onwards it is going to be really fertile, and naturally they waited on that. They were able to amass a lot as a result of the flooding of this river. And if you have prosperity among the people, then there will be civilization, and it is out of this prosperity that civilization has come over to that particular area, and it is from that civilization great things were created. But now when you think of those ancient rivers and how these river banks were the cradle of prosperity and civilization, what you find here with the Capybara River is not civilization. You find dirty and beggarly people, that is not civilization. You find people who are utterly poor, that again is not prosperity. So it is utter degradation, and it is because the river just do not flood and bring fertility to the river banks. Maybe the river floods, but instead of this bringing fertility, it brings only contaminated water, and contaminated water will not make the river banks fertile, and with that lack of fertility there will be no cultivation, and there will be nothing for the people to feed on, and there will be nothing for the people to live on. So the river and the river banks depend upon the water of the river, and this water is that which floods over if there is a river, if there is rain, and brings prosperity to the banks. Of course there is a flooding, there is maybe the rains coming on, but there is no prosperity for the river banks, because the water it contains is not fertile, but it has only contamination. And because of this contaminated water, there is no cultivation, no fertility for the river bank, and so there is nothing for the people to feed on, and the people have to beg, and they are beggarly and they remain poor, and their condition is so utterly degrading that you have to believe it, to see it, to believe it. And this is exactly what Cabral tells us, and he knows it on first hand, because he is writing about his country, and so he knows what these people are doing, and how poor these people are, and how impossible to lead a proper life even though they are on the river banks. People believe that because there is a river nearby, there will be water and they will be able to cultivate the land. This is why these black people had settled on the banks of the river. But they were so disappointed. They did not take it, they did not think of the water that is contaminated. They thought of only the river, which will bring prosperity. But prosperity is not going to come with this contaminated river. so there is nothing for the people to feed on and to live on. So here the poet again says, it opens up in hard-leafed, it opens up in hard-leafed, that is, the river never it never opens up to fish. It opens up in flowers, and again you will find that the people, and it opens up in flowers, poor and black, like black men and women. It opens into a flora as squalid and beggarly as the blacks who must beg. It opens up in hard-leafed mangroves, kinky as a black man's hair. Again he says something more. This what he says here is really important. As smooth like the belly of a pregnant dog, the river swells without ever bursting. So the river swells without ever bursting, and even before that he says that it opens in hard-leafed mangroves and kinky as a black man's hair. So these lines are important because it opens in hard-leafed places, hard-leafed mangroves, and mangroves are waterlogged areas. And he also speaks of kinky as a black man's hair. The black man's hair is kinky, means tight curls, black tight curls. This is how a black man's hair appears, and this place near the river now opens up in mangroves. I hope you must have seen mangroves, that is the waterlogged areas where you have roots intertwining among themselves, and you will find plants coming up, and there will be lots of water beneath that, and most of that water will be dirty water. And these waterlogged areas were looking kinky, means looks like the tight curls of a black man's hair. That is the way the trees appear in the mangrove. They appear to be like tight curls, black tight curls from above. Maybe it is dark green, but now the river is smooth. And you think that when the poet says the river is smooth, it is like the belly of a pregnant dog. It swells but do not burst. There is no overflowing water to wash away the impurities. The dirty, slimy, muddy water remains as such, swells at times with the gas that is let out by the mangroves. So here you find that the river is now smooth, like the belly of a pregnant dog. It swells but do not burst. So the river swells with the dirt, and there is no overflowing water to wash away the impurities. It is so dirty, slimy, muddy water, and it remains as such, not water but slime, and it swells at times with the gas that is let out by the mangroves. The trees of the mangrove will let out gas, and that creates certain bubbles, but at the same time it just swells, and this is the condition of the river. So here you will find that the waterlogged areas are in a way described as kinky. The tight curls of a black man's hair, that is also very important, and the river is now smooth. That is another imagery. There is the kinky hair, the tight curls of a black man's hair, and now it is like the belly of a pregnant dog. The imagery of the dog is brought back from the first stanza again to this stanza. It swells but do not burst because there is no overflowing water, and it still remains dirty, slimy, muddy. And these are the terms that are used by the poet to describe this river. And again it swells sometimes by the gas that is let out of the mangroves. And now the poet has yet another imagery. It is that of the river's childbirth. And the poet says, the river's childbirth is like a dog's, fluid and invertebrate, and I never saw it seethe as bread when rising seethes. As bread when rising will seethe, means when you put yeast to bread batter, then you keep it for some time, and it swells with the effect of the yeast, and it seems that this will make make the bread spongy and quite tasty. So this is yet another analogy that the poet uses. So when the poet uses the analogy of a dog earlier to describe the river, we must assume it to be a street dog, because no ordinary dog well cared for will behave as it is crossing the street in this uncared for manner. But this dog is uncared for, and so he brings in that imagery. The river gives birth, and that action is fluid, easy, and it is also invertebrate. He uses that term invertebrate because of the ease with which the river is flowing. There is no vertebra to hold it straight or to make it stand on its own. And without any vertebra, which means that it doesn't have a spine, and the river just do not have a spine because of this. It has not the ability to speak for itself. It is spineless, and a slimy creature is born for the river. So in a way, this river is quite flowing, and it is contaminated, and people are doing a lot of things to the river, and the river is not reacting. It is not the term spineless is used here because it shows that the person have to stand on his own feet and speak for itself and do something. But in this case it is not so, because the river can't do it. The river will just flow like anything. But the poet had not seen it seethe in pain, like the dough for bread rising seethes. So here you find that the poet had not seen the river seethe in pain, and he now takes the comparison to another level. It is not like the dog, it is like the dough for bread. Bread that the imagery brings in, the tasty bread, and that is good because when you put yeast to the batter for bread, you find that it is put in such a manner that it will swell in shape, and it seethes. It has got a rising which is seething, and it rises slowly, and but at the same time effectively, and it is soft and creamy because you put either butter or oil, and you have the dough in the right proportion, yeast also in the right proportion, milk also in the right proportion, and sometimes some people will put egg also, so that all this makes it so very tasty. So here you find that not egg inside, but maybe for outside, for making it look really browned, they put something on the top. So here you find that when you put it in the oven, it comes up so good, so well done, and it is so soft and spongy that when you eat that bread, you can eat it even without anything, or it is that tasty. So he uses the imagery of the dough for bread, and that dough for bread seethes, or it rises and it seethes, and it brings in the soft and creamy things to the forefront. The soft and creamy things in the sense that it's about the bread, and it is so very attractive. So here the poet is just shifting from the imagery of a dirty street dog to the bread dough, which again shows that once upon a time this river had been nourishing the people, and those people who lived around that. They used to cultivate the corn, they used to make bread out of that. That bread used to be soft and creamy and seething, and it used to be the food that they used to get, and it brought in prosperity also. The abundance of the crop really made them prosperous, and they were able to build up a civilization based on the river and the fertility of that river. You will find Indus Valley civilization. They are also on the banks of the river Indus. You will find a group of people settled because that area was so fertile that it is indeed the place that the people lived, and they depended on the overflowing of the water of the river, and this overflowing made the banks of the river fertile. But this can't be said about this particular river, Capibari Bay River, because no longer is the river a fertile place. There is no seeding that will bring about a tasty bread like imagery. The people are not satisfied. Their hunger is not satisfied. They remain poor, and he uses the two terms beg and beggarly to describe them. And you will also find that the people who live on the banks of the river are the black people, black men and women, and they have no way to live. They try to live by the river by cultivating the land, but the water was so contaminated that it is no longer nourishing, and they have no way of making the land fertile and earning an income from that. Not even any prosperity, can't even think of prosperity, just can't even think of having a day which will give them a full meal. Nothing doing, because that river bank is so contaminated because of the water from the Capibari Bay River. So not just the river, but the river banks and the people live by it are indeed affected by this river. So you find the poet using different imageries, that of a dog, that of a dove for bread, and you find this contrasting images. When he uses the imagery of a dog, you know that it is contaminated. When he starts using the imagery of a dove for bread, then naturally you feel you think of the golden times the river once upon a time had, and it was soft and creamy. So all these opposing imagery that he uses is about one river, that is Capibari Bay River, and it is in this sense that you will have to understand the poem. Once upon a time the river must have been having good water and flooding its banks with the life-giving water, and people must have survived at that time. But what happened afterwards? These people from the other part also, they must have put in a lot of, dumped their waste in it, and had contaminated the river in such a manner that they did not think twice about the river bank or the flooding of the river bank. So only people who are living near the river bank will, and who live by that cultivation, will think of the contamination of the river. For others it is just a river flowing, and if it is contaminated, it's not their problem, somebody had done it. That kind of an attitude is there with the people, and so this kind of thoughtless behavior is also hinted at by this poem. And the poet is telling us that this river is life-giving. That's why he uses the imagery of the dove for bread, and the rising, the dove for bread rising, which is seething, and it should have been life-giving, but it is not. So this contrast is emphasized again and again by the poet, because he is one person who makes sure that people get the message that this river and its river bank are indeed precious, or once upon a time it was sacred to the people. So it is impossible for us to not to think of the river, but we have to think of the river, and we have also to think of what it will give us, that is the gift of the river. And the gift of the river is something that we have to assume to be a river that gives a lot of hope to the people, and the river is in a way that gives nourishment to the people, and it helps in building up a civilization. In order to develop a civilization, you need a lot of things, lots of money and prosperity among the people. And if only there is prosperity among the people, there will be a civilization. Otherwise there will be nothing. You have learnt in your history lessons how once upon a time that particular age of the rule of one king was the golden age. You call it a golden age, and the reasons why you call it a golden age is also mentioned, because there was peace and prosperity among the nation. And why the peace and prosperity? Because there is plenty, and there is a king to protect the people from the attack of the enemies. So in this manner the money comes from prosperity, and money and prosperity goes together, and this comes only if there is fertilized river banks and cultivation, and mainly cultivation, and out of that cultivation there will be prosperity, lots of plenty, lots of crops, and more to give and store for the coming years, and this will help people to enjoy their life, relax a little bit, and give importance to fine arts and a lot of other things. It is all these together which makes a civilization, and river banks were famous for that. This is exactly what the poet had been telling us, and he is reminding us that the river once upon a time must have been like a life-giving river, and water from the river was life-giving, and people had crops, and they had dough for bread. All these were possible, but now these people do not have any dough or anything to eat, so they must beg. They don't have anything to cultivate on. They are living on the river banks, of course, but their fate is such that they have to go begging from place to place, from people to people, and that gives this river a different image. A river that just do not give water, a river that do not flood its banks with fertile water or life-giving water, is the image that we get about the Capybara River. So Cabral is putting the condition of not just the Capybara River, he is also putting across to the readers the condition of the river the world over. This is not the condition of just one river. You must have seen how the river in your area floods, and you will move away from that place, because what the river brings in is just removing the dirt that is there in there deposited by the people, that black slime, and it will be flowing freely. But even then there will be lots of slime there, but nobody will think of it as fertile, because you know that it is contaminated. So here we are also visualizing such an image even in our country. So the imagery of the dog, street dog, is prevalent in the first part of the poem, and towards the end of this stanza, not just in the first part of this stanza, but in the beginning of the poem itself, he had started using the imagery of the dog, and now he is using the imagery of the dove for bread rising, and that brings in a little bit of hope, or in a way he is reminding us of the good enough condition the river had, the people had for a long time. So this is something that we have to take into consideration, because this is exactly how each river is going to be if it is not cared for by the people who are living on its banks, or even among the people, or even by the authorities. So dear students, I am taking very few lines at a time, so that you can really understand what the poem is really about, and you just go through those lines that I have mentioned in the slide, and read those lines, because sometimes I have cut from one stanza and taken from the other, and this is how it is said, but there is a full stop, I have stopped, and from the next line on it had started. So go through those lines and find out the meaning, and also check whatever that you can understand about the poem. It is explained in very simple lines, and you can also go through the information that is given about the Capybara River, especially from page 112 and 113 and also 114, 3 pages, 112, 113 and 114. You can read and understand all for yourself. So this will give you an idea of Cabral's way of putting it across to the nation, what river the Capybara River occurs or looks like. And the title of the poem is Landscape, and you can imagine the land through which the Capybara River is flowing, not just one area. This is the same for almost all those river banks, and you can just find out where through which all regions this river is flowing. I hope you have an atlas at home, or else you check the net and find for yourself, which will be really interesting to note, because you will be learning more about the people living on the river banks. Okay, thank you.